Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Dailey, a young adult science fiction and fantasy author, and today we are talking about plotting and pantsing, architects and gardening, and what the heck do those mean? So depending on what writing circles you're in or where you get your info, you might know these writing types as plotters versus pantsers or architects versus gardeners. This is a question about how you organize yourself and write your book. So I'll go over what these are, the strengths of each, and a piece of advice to help you battle your weaknesses. So first up is a plotter. A plotter is someone who plots out their novel first. This is someone who's going to get organized. They'll figure out who their characters are and how they change, what the big conflicts are and how they line up with the world and characters, and basically write the entire story arc before even working on their first page. Plotters come in many forms. You can be a heavy outliner, filling out world-building bibles and character sheets and even scene beats, outlining down to the very last detail, making sure everything lines up and is going to work out story-wise. Or you can have a decent outline and a general idea of the characters and world as you begin. Not everyone is a super heavy outliner, but you can still outline generally and be considered a plotter. Okay. Guaranteed to make my leg fall asleep again. Yeah, it smells like hairspray. Another term for this is being an architect. If you look at it this way, you're going to build your novel the same way an architect would build a house. You're going to draw out the schematics first. You know exactly how big the rooms are, where the doorways and windows are, the stairs, where the sinks go. You know a lot about what a house is going to look like before you begin building it. On one hand, plotter architects do an amazing job of creating tight story outlines and character arcs, but you might have a hard time creating emotion in your scenes. Oh, okay, bye. Putting in tension and plot twists, and maybe a little bit of an issue with telling instead of showing, because you're busy bulking up, buffering, and filling out that gorgeous outline you've written, instead of just feeling your way through a scene. One piece of advice I have for architects is to actually get up and act out your scenes. I know, you're gonna look like a crazy person. It's fine. You're going to end up with more believable dialogue, and you'll be able to feel the emotions of your characters and the scenes that they're in. That way you're not just transferring information over from your outline. A pantser is someone who has a general idea of the story they want to tell, who the characters are, and what the world is like, but instead of writing that information out on an outline, they start on page 1, or some other scene or chapter, because not all of us write linearly. A pantser feels that the story unfolds as you write it, and it will be more natural with characters making better cause and effect decisions and better dialogue as you, the writer, are going on the journey with them through the plot. Another term for this is being a gardener. It's the idea that you will plant a seed, tend to it, and see what grows. You know what type of seed you're putting in, whether it's a tomato seed or an acorn, or a fantasy or a contemporary seed. So you know what type of story is going to grow. But you don't know exactly what it's going to look like. You don't know how many limbs it's going to have or what kind of bounty it will bring. You don't know the details as you plant that seed. As a gardener, it's your job to plant it and tend to it and let it grow into the best version of itself. I like the term gardener more than pantser because with pantser, which comes from the term flying by the seat of your pants, it sounds like you don't really know what you're doing. You're just winging it. Whereas gardener sounds like you know what you're doing. You're tending something. It sounds more thoughtful, more meaningful, that you know what you're doing, you're just not sure exactly where it's going yet. So quick sidebar here on pantsers. Some people actually are pantsers. Outlining stresses you out. You get written into a corner. You don't feel the freedom you need to be creative and create a good story. Pantsers know how character and story work and can dive right into writing. Stephen King, for example, is a notorious pantser. He doesn't need to outline. However, if you're avoiding outlining because it feels like work, or you're too lazy to bother, or maybe you don't quite understand how to outline yet, that's not you being a pantser, that's you still figuring out what you are. And that's okay. If you pants your way through a book and you're actually not a pantser, you're gonna end up with a lot of plot holes and story arc issues. So the difficult part isn't going to be now, it's going to be later in the editing process. If you're writing your first book, you might not know exactly what you are yet, and you might not even know until you're done. So just be prepared for that. Pantser gardeners usually find emotion, tension, and surprises to come easier in their scenes because they write their way into it, allowing it to build as they go. Your scenes are going to feel more organic, and you have the ability to write in new characters or objects as you need them. However, pantsers have a harder time knowing when to stop a scene when it's getting away from them, and may end up meandering in scenes that have nothing to do with the plot. It will take more editing, backtracking, and general work to push those characters back on track where they need to be. One piece of advice I have for a pantser, you can just write the end first. If you have a clear goal in mind on where you want the plot to go, you can kind of steer your characters down that path. But maybe you're not one or the other. The plotter pantser crew has come up with a combination word to describe a mix of the two. Plotter pantser, you're a plantser. So I have a quick rant about the word plantser before we begin. I hate this word. Does anyone else hate this word? I hate this word. Maybe because it's not a real word, or maybe because this is what I am and I hate labeling myself with such an obnoxious word. But I mean, if we use it enough, Webster's gonna make it a word anyway, right? So onward to making plantser into the dictionary. End rant. So plantsers are a combination of plotters and pantsers. They will do some form of outlining, whether it's heavy outlining or light outlining, and then pants their way through the rest of the novel. Unfortunately, there's no great combo word between architects and gardeners, which is a real shame. But I like to think that you end up with some semblance of a treehouse. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and officially adopt the term treehouse master as a proper combination between architect and gardener because it sounds way cooler than plantser. In the end, there's no right way to build a novel, and every novel you write is going to be different. There will be times that you're going to need to be a more rigorous outliner, and there are times when the story is just going to flood you and you'll have no issues just flying through it. And the same goes for individual scenes in your manuscript, and every manuscript, like I said, is different. Some of your scenes are going to come naturally to you, and some are going to be harder to deal with. The reality is that writers need to be a little bit of both. We need to be outliners, and we need to be able to pants our way through things, or tend our gardens and make sure that scenes and chapters are growing as they need to. Regardless, at least knowing which you are is going to show you your strengths and prepare you for your weaknesses when it comes to the editing phase. Alright guys, that's all I have for you today. I hope you've enjoyed this, figuring out what plotters and pantsers and architects and gardeners and plantsers. I still hate that word. My new word is now treehouse masters, but I hope you liked listening to all of this, and I will see you guys next time. See you later. Writing circles your circle right off the bat. My brain is not in it. You know why? Every time I start these things, I listen to Lizzo and I like pump myself up with whatever song I'm feeling at the time, and I didn't do that and I should have done that. You're not pumped. You be pumped through the plot. It's like I look down, I read it, and then I forget it. Like from here to here, I've forgotten what I need to say. I need a coffee.